I just built an AI agent that automates Upwork job applications. Now, I've made about 500 grand on Upwork to date, and as I'm sure you can imagine, I've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't, sometimes the hard way. What I've come to realize is that the main distinguishing factor in a good Upwork application versus a bad one is the degree of perceived customization and the degree of perceived value. So what I've done here is I've built an end-to-end AI agent that produces a lot of both. I've also included the workflow down below in the description, so if you just want to cut ahead and actually get it for yourself, just check that down below. So the way that it works is, just like any agent, we expose a chat window. We then go and we grab an Upwork job posting, preferably something that includes some context about what the person wants and how they want it done. So I'm just going to go here and then copy in all of this. And then we just paste it in. The flow then calls 3 subflows. The first is an Upwork agent that generates a Google Doc proposal, which ends up looking like this. This is written in best practice. It's everything that I've learned in building a highly successful Upwork profile that's generated over $500,000. After that, we'll then generate a proposal reply. So basically, in order to respond to a job on Upwork, you need what's called a CV. And so this will actually go ahead and generate one for you, again, based off best practices with a little area called About Me that you can paste your own details into. And then finally, it'll go and generate what's called a Mermaid diagram. And for those of you that don't know, a Mermaid diagram is just a quick and easy way to essentially get a bunch of workflow code, which we can copy and paste into any platform to produce what looks like a highly personalized and very valuable workflow that you just bent over backwards to create. You can then do whatever you want with this. You could screenshot it. You could send it to them. You could make some edits to it. You could add it to like a bigger proposal to send over. But the crux of it is you end up with this message, and all you do is you just copy and paste this message. When you go to apply to said job, you then scroll down to the CV part, and then you put that puppy in there. That's about it. This automates a pretty core and unique feature of Upwork job applications, not specifically for people that are running automation companies, but just anything that you can envision as a process. And today I'm actually going to be building it out with you live, step by step. So this isn't just going to be one of those situations where I show you the finished product and then run through it. I'm actually going to show you guys what a real live build process looks like from start to finish, so you guys can follow along with me. Okay, so let's get to it. I'm going to create a new workflow. We're going to call this live build Upwork AI agent. I'm going to tag this. As you know, you can do an N8N for organizational purposes. In my case, is N8N course. Let's just dive right into putting the agent together. I'm going to go over here and type in agent. We'll go down to this. The window that opens will default to a tools agent, which is the one that we want. But I'd recommend you also spend a little bit of time scrolling through the other sorts of agents, because it's not all tool agents, although people tend to use them the most. I'm then going to create a system message. Systems are just the way that models define themselves, and an AI agent is just, using ChatGPT or whatever AI model source under the hood, so it's no different. What I usually write is, you're a helpful, intelligent something assistant, and I'm going to give it some additional instructions. Your task is to receive an Upwork job description, and then use it to generate assets like Mermaid diagrams, Google Docs, and Upwork application bodies. Perfect. So we now have our AI agent defined and systematized. We need to go to chat model, scroll down to OpenAI chat model. That's the one that I'm going to be using. And just know that you guys can do whatever AI model you want for this. I'm just using ChatGPT. And then you have to connect an account, or essentially create a credential. Now, if you've never created a credential before, head on over to create new credential and then check out the documentation. It's very straightforward. Essentially, you will go and get into your OpenAI account, go to the API key page, and just copy and paste that into this section over here. The second that that's done, your credential will be created and you can proceed with the rest of this demo. But I'm going to move over to YouTube_February the 4th, just because that's one that I connected. And now we're connected to GPT-4o Mini. And I'm just going to use GPT-4o Mini for the purposes of this, although I want you guys to know that if you use a better model, you're going to get better results. It's just going to be a little bit more time intensive and computationally intensive as well. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go and add window buffer memory. Now, default context window length is 5. I'm just going to do 10, just because models have gotten better since that default was applied. And now we sort of get to the point where we can start adding our tools. So first of all, for those of you that are new to AI agents, this is now just like chatting with ChatGPT. So you can ask it whatever question you want, and it'll use the default intelligence that's built into the model in order to get back to you. But obviously, we don't just want to stop there. We want it to be able to call subtools and essentially execute workflows on our behalf in order to do things like generate a Google Doc, or write us a high quality Upwork description, or I don't know, generate Mermaid code. The thing is, well, you could technically do all of this in just one long flow. What we're going to do is we're going to divide it into three subsets so that we can make sure that the module calls that we're doing are basically doing the best that they can at that one particular thing. And I found that this is pretty necessary when you're dealing with models like GPT-4, GPT-4o. If you really want to squeeze the best results out of them, you got to keep the number of instructions that you're giving them to a minimum. And you also just have to ask them to do like the one thing that you really want. So I'm going to head over to Tool here. And then I'm going to be calling an N8N workflow tool. The thing is, we don't actually have those tools yet, so we're going to create them. So I'm going to go back over here, and then I'm going to be creating 3 additional workflows. The first is going to be called, let's do live build Upwork agent, and we'll say generate application copy. Then I'm also going to go and generate a second one. Let's call this live build Upwork agent, generate Google Doc proposal. And then I'm going to go and generate a third one, which is going to be called generate Mermaid code. So if you guys want to add some additional asset that maybe I'm not including here, then you just have to add one additional layer to this. I recommend using a naming convention like the name of the agent, and then having a colon, and then some specific tool usage that you want. But okay, great. You should now have, 3 or 4 tabs open. One with the AI agent, another with the first thing we want, which is for it to generate the application copy, another with the second thing that we want, which is to generate the Google Doc, and then another with the third thing, which is to generate that Mermaid code with that sexy workflow diagram I showed you guys. So in order to have an AI agent effectively call a service, what we need to do is we need to go over here, and then as a first step, we want when called by another workflow as our trigger. So essentially, when you have an execute workflow trigger, you are enabling this workflow to be called by a parent somewhere else. So I'm just going on all 3, and I'm just adding execute workflow trigger. So now all 3 have these little workflow triggers. I'm just alt tabbing, or in my case, control shift tabbing and control tabbing back and forth to change tabs. Now we're going to start one by one with the generate application copy. And then once that's done, it's kind of a simple ask. We're going to move over to the more complicated thing, which is creating a Google Doc and updating it and having it ready. And then at the end, we're going to do the Mermaid code, and then we're going to put it all together. But starting with the generate application copy, if you think about what's actually happening here, we're basically asking this AI agent top level to like maintain some sort of coherent thread or thought pattern or something like that, some stream of consciousness. And then what we're doing is we're saying, hey, you have all of these tools available to you. Here's a shovel. Over there is, I don't know, like a scythe. And over there is like a pickaxe, okay? I want you to go out and I want you to extract some ore. So I don't know if you guys played RuneScape, but I played a ton of it back in the day. If you want to extract some ore, you need a pickaxe, right? So the idea is the model is smart enough to kind of make that determination for yourself. And the reason why I'm building it out in this way is just so that you can add things onto this agent and make it as arbitrarily complex as you want. You could add an Upwork scraper to this thing to scrape jobs, have those jobs automatically converted into the things that I'm talking to you about. I'm just sort of laying a fertile ground for you to add more or less whatever you think is relevant, whatever will help you make money. But essentially what we want to do is here, we're just going to have that first agent talk to another AI model. So I'm going to go over here and I'll type OpenAI. I'm going to use the message a model text action. So because we're connecting to another OpenAI node, I'm just going to use the same credential I did before, which is YouTube February the 4th. And then from the list, what I'm going to choose is just GPT-4o mini. And I'm doing this not because I care about the cost, but just because it's a little bit faster, I find. And faster is better when you're dealing with stuff like this. When I'm doing a demo on YouTube is what I mean to say. Okay, great. Now I could go in and I could like write all of this from scratch again and make it a little bit different, but I've already spent the time and energy writing this specific prompt. So I'm actually just going to go grab that prompt, and then I'll run through the logic and sort of tell you guys why I wrote what I wrote. Okay. So this is the prompt I'm going to be providing it. That's not actually the prompt I'm going to be providing it. This is the prompt I'm going to be providing it. This is going to say you are a helpful, intelligent Upwork application writer. Perfect. So the system prompt is always going to be our first one. This is how the system identifies. This basically tells us, let me whip up my little drawing app here. The purpose of this is basically to tell, the AI, who am I? Right? So that's how the AI answers this question. So who am I? Well, you're a helpful, intelligent Upwork application writer. Fantastic. This second prompt down here, this user prompt, the purpose of this is basically to answer, what do you want me to do? And so these are two different things. And I find the vast majority of the time, not to admonish the rest of the industry or anything, but the vast majority of the time when, we have these amazing AI agent flows, usually the prompt engineering is really lacking. And you can tell in the responses that it sends and receives, the quality of the assets that it generates tend to suck and stuff like that. So if you want really high quality assets, you got to start with really high quality prompt engineering, or as high quality as one can reasonably do in like the hour that it took me to build this puppy. But let me run you through what it looks like. Generally speaking, and I've only stumbled upon this because I've done a lot of it, you want to start with the context of who you are, okay? So you want it to know something about you, something that it'll need to know in order to do a good job. So in my case, I'm an automation specialist applying to jobs on freelance platforms, right? Let's use green. Green is a happier color than whatever the heck I was using before. The next is you basically give it a task. So you say, hey, what are you doing? Your task is to take as input an Upwork job description and return as output a customized proposal, okay? So this is just a high-level overview of what the model does. Fantastic. Then what we do is we give it an example. So high-performing proposals are typically templated as follows. And now here's the key of prompt engineering that I'd like to put across to you guys when you're designing these sorts of flows for yourself. Don't have the AI generate everything. Have the AI generate a very small portion of a thing that you've already templated. So for instance, if I have two options here, okay? If this is option number one and I'm having it generate a big long page for me, and this is all AI text, this is what most people do. They have the AI generate the whole document. And unfortunately, AI it's flexible, which is fantastic. But in business cases, flexibility and the lack of rigor is usually not what companies want, and it doesn't make you money. What you need to have some sort of predictability, reliability. And so what you really want it to do is you actually want the vast majority of the text in whatever asset that you're making to actually already be templated. So what you want is AI, if AI is the green, okay? What you want is you want to write the vast majority of it yourself, then just have AI fill in the blanks for you. Maybe a couple lines here or there, okay? That's about it. So after you tell it who you are, after you give it a little bit of context surrounding the high-level version of the task, what you want it to do is give it an example, in my case, of the template that I want it to write. Now, I've written tons of these things before. I mean, I made $500,000 on Upwork. You don't make 500 grand unless you sort of, without sort of figuring out what people like and how best to treat them. So a high-performing template that I've found is where you basically just, you say, hey, I do exactly what you're asking all the time. I'm really confident I'm the right fit for it. So I've actually just done something custom for you. In this case, I created a workflow diagram plus a demo of your thing in no code. Okay, and you'll see that I'm wrapping these in these little curly braces. These are just variables that I'm using to tell the AI model, this is what I want you to change. So hi, I do thing all the time. I'm so confident I'm the right fit for you that I just created a workflow diagram plus a demo of your blank in no code. What I'm going to do is I'm going to include this as a link, right? And this is going to be, if you think about it, that proposal that we have here. And what we can do very easily is you could obviously just take a screenshot of this, and then you can include that in said file, just before you go. And apparently I can't cut and paste into Google Docs because I'm using the wrong browser. Anyway, I think you guys understand the point that I'm trying to make. Yeah, and then I have these $ here. This is just a way that I'm telling the model later, hey, I want you to like fill in these $ with the actual link. And then about me, I'm a relevant job description that has done a cool, relevant thing of note, other cool tie-in. Very neat. Happy to do this for you anytime. Just respond to this proposal, else I don't get a chat window. Thank you. So there's a lot going on here, and I'm not gonna harp on every little bit, but the whole Happy to do this for you anytime. Just respond to this proposal, else I don't get a chat window. I found when I started including verbiage like this in my Upwork proposals and outbound messages, application or proposal to reply rate shot up. So I think the reality is a lot of people that use Upwork that are hiring for jobs and stuff like that, they don't actually understand that you can't interact with them unless they send you a message first. Upwork tells them, but I don't think the vast majority of people really know. So we're just harping on this fact. If you like what you saw, and if you like me, you got to send me a message in order to keep talking. And I know it's like a throwaway line, or it certainly seems that way, but stuff like that works really well. Anyway, so if we just go back to our little writing tool here, what we did before was we provided a template, right? Well, now what we do is we go rules and formatting. And when you do rules, I always now do it as just a new line delimited, aka like a big list of bullet points. And then when I do the format, I always give it the key that I want it to output. In my case, I'm going to be using JSON, JavaScript Object Notation, specifically because it allows us to format the results and grab them as variables, which you'll see in a second. But this is the format that I always use when I develop prompts, and I find that output quality just tends to go up. If you guys are curious about how to improve the quality of your prompts on your end, just head over to Anthropic's prompt guide. They have this big prompt engineering step-by-step guide. They literally give you everything that you could ever possibly need about prompt engineering right over here. And everything that Anthropic talks about is similarly applied to everything that ChatGPT or OpenAI or other models do. The only difference between Anthropic and OpenAI is Anthropic prefers XML tags, whereas OpenAI prefers JSON. That's really not a big deal. You can totally do them interchangeably. Okay, great. And then at the end here, I have some facts about me for the personalization, JSON.aboutMe. So let me actually change this to an expression just so we can actually render variables. This is now in gray because we don't actually have this variable before. But then the last thing we need to do, obviously, is we need to feed it the job description. So let me just go job description. And then I'm just going to have a placeholder. Down here, we'll click output content as JSON. Then just as an option here, I'm going to go down to output randomness temperature. I'm just going to change it to 0.7. Why? Because anecdotally, I find that my responses are closer to my tone of voice and what I like when I'm at an output 0.7 versus a 1. Okay, great. So we have everything that we need there. There's one more thing I have to add that I forgot to do. I just want a way for you guys to be able to like swap in your own templates and information about yourself at will, just because I think it's important to make all the templates that I put out actually have some like practical purpose. So I'm going to create an about me variable using an edit fields node. For those of you that are unfamiliar, this is basically like a set a variable node in make.com and other no-code platforms. And just to make my life easy, I'm just going to copy the about me that I wrote for myself before, which was right over there. Which was, I'm an AI and automation freelancer that builds outreach systems, CRM systems, project management systems, no-code systems, and integration. Some notable things I've done end-to-end project management for a $1 million a year copywriting agency, outbound acquisition system that grew a content company from 10K to 92K a month, Monday.com CRM for a recruiting company doing 1 million a year, blah, 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 right? Here's just some little pieces of social proof. When you guys actually jump in there and, like edit the thing, the workflow, just add your own social proof. I'm going to leave mine in, and you can just map it one for one if you want to, and make your life a little bit easier. Okay, great. So now we have this model. We should now actually be taking some information. JSON about me, awesome. Now what we need to do is, if you think about it, we need to test this, right? And then I need to find a way to get a variable in here. So in order to test, when you use an execute workflow trigger, you actually have to pin the data yourself. Like if you want to be able to test this realistically and see everything in your browser, just like you would with any other sort of workflow, you need to actually go up here to the top right-hand corner of the execute workflow trigger, and then you have to pin the result. So I'm actually going to create my own JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. I'm going to call it query because that's how the AI agent node is going to be sending our data. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the big, long Upwork job description here, and I'm just going to paste it in. So let me just go all the way. Ooh, this is actually going to be really long. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'll say remove new lines from this, i.e. put it all on one line. I'm going to paste this whole thing in. This is going to take a fair amount of time to go, but basically the reason why I'm doing that is because in JSON, you can't actually have new lines. You see how the text up here is green right now? That's because this is valid JSON. The second that I add a new line in between my two quote symbols, it unfortunately breaks. So what I wanted to do is I just want the model to regenerate me all of this, but I wanted to do it with no new lines. So it's just simple and easy for me. And the moment that that's done, I'm just going to paste it right over here, and then we'll have our query. So these lovely human beings did write a fair amount, and that's okay. I want to show you guys how it works on variable output lengths. Awesome. That looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to go over here and just paste it. And then I'm going to save. And this is going to automatically pin the output. And so now this is a little purple circle around it. That just means that the output is pinned. Set variable. We have the query. I'm just going to test this so I can watch the output. Okay, now I have the about me. I'm going to move over here to the right. And now I'm actually just going to insert the job description from the execute workflow trigger. If you don't have an expression field when you drag something in N8N, it'll just automatically stick it at the end, which I know is annoying. So just make sure you change anything to an expression field first before you want to do that. Anyway, now I have the whole job description fed in as JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. I have this trigger that says output content is JSON. I can now test this on OpenAI, and I can have it try and basically generate me an example of this. Okay, so let's see here. Hi, I do thing all the time. I'm so confident I'm the right fit for you that I just created a workflow diagram plus a demo of your blank, in this case, receipt and invoice extraction system in no code. Beautiful. About me, I'm an AI and automation freelancer that has done end-to-end project management for a $1 million a year copywriting agency and built an automated content generation system for an SEO agency doing $10 million a year. Of note, I run a make.com community that has $100,000 a month. Happy to do this for you anytime. Just respond to this proposal, else I don't get a chat window. Thank you. Awesome. So now we have that output. What we have to do is if we want to get that output back to our first AI agent, we actually need to, when I call the tool, which I'll set up in a moment, we actually need the output to be the name of a variable that we specify. So for simplicity, I'm just going to go over here and create a new edit fields node. And then what I'm going to do is I'll map it and I'll just call this, let's just call it response. I'm going to execute previous nodes just so I have access to that. And then I'm just going to go to expression, drag in this proposal field. Okay, great. So now the AI agent is going to know that the end result is stored in a variable called response. I'll tell it that in a second. And we have another variable that'll be output here called response that it'll be able to access. So this is, in a nutshell, how we do that first part, which is just generate that text. Now I actually need to hook it up to our agent. So I'm going to go call N8N workflow tool. What I want to call it is I want to call it something like generate proposal generate, what did I call this? Application copy. So I'll call this generate application copy. And then I'm just going to follow their format, which was call this tool to generate Upwork application copy. Your input or the input will be an Upwork job description, and the output will be the proposal, the Upwork application copy string from the tool. Definitely do not leave that. And let me just make this even clearer. Generate Upwork application copy. Cool. The source that I'm going to do is from our database. What I want is this live build Upwork agent generate application copy. So generate application copy. I may not have it. Let me see. Live build. Yeah, I don't have it yet, unfortunately, because I created these 3 tabs or workflows after I created this. So it doesn't actually have access to that backwards. We are going to refresh. I'm going to go back here, and then I'm going to go live build Upwork agent generate application copy. If you find yourself in that situation in the future, by the way, you can just copy the ID of the workflow, which is always the thing that happens after /workflow/. Then you can just go by ID, and then you can paste it in here. Same thing, right? Exact same thing. The field to return is going to be response, and that's just because this is the default field that N8N always returns. If I go back to my edit fields node, you see how I called this one response, right? Okay, beautiful. So we now have basically everything that we need in order to actually test this puppy. And my recommendation for you is anytime you're developing a workflow in N8N or any other no-code tool, every time you think that you've gotten to some milestone, test it and make sure. Don't just assume that your flow works the way that you want it to work, okay? Actually go out and test it. So I'm just going to rename this generate application copy. I'm then going to open up a chat window with my AI agent. I'll say hello. I'm going to have it tell me something. How can I assist you today? If you have something specific in mind, just let me know. Beautiful. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to Just make sure everything's good on this end. Let me just unpin this. I don't want this here. Okay, great. And now I'm going to paste in this big Upwork application. Here's an Upwork job post. And what I want it to do is I want it to be smart enough to know that it has to go and it has to generate, that Upwork job application copy. And voila, looks like it did. So if we go back to that chat window, that's pretty fast. Here's a tailored application for the job you provided. Upwork application copy. Hi, so you're looking for a Make.com automation specialist to streamline your blank. Here's all this information about me. I'm happy to do this for you anytime. Just respond to this proposal, else I don't get a chat window. Thank you. So that's cool, right? We now have something that's being customized dynamically based off of the input. What you'll also notice is the output of if we go down to the generate application copy, the output of this had a $sign, right? But the AI agent was smart enough to know that it was just a bunch of $signs. And so nothing was filled in. So it actually removed it, right? That's pretty neat. Well, that should be a little hint as to how we're going to combine the output of both of those tools in the future. We're going to have the link. The link is going to go into the AI agent. It's going to look at the link to the Google Doc proposal, and then it's going to look at the application copy that we just generated. And it's going to say, I guess this goes over there. And it's actually going to meld it for us live. So that's pretty neat. I'm a fan. But anyway, I'm glad that all of this is now working, and we can move on to the next step, which is going to be creating a Google Doc proposal, if you want to call it that, to send out en masse. Now, I've actually gone ahead and I've created a template for this called the Google Docs Upwork proposal template. Now, what it looks like, just to walk you guys through, is we start off with the title of the system. We then have a brief explanation of the system. So in my case, I'm doing automation, right? So I'm building systems for people. That's why I keep on saying system and system and system. In your case, I don't know, maybe you're doing some sort of PPC ads or something. Feel free to swap out the verbiage as necessary. You can totally just copy this Google Doc and save it to your own account. We then start templating everything. So we say hello. Now, just because I'm bored, I'm going to throw in a wave because I want this to be different from the one that I did before. So hello. As mentioned, I'm so confident I'm the right fit for this, I went ahead and created a proposal for you, including a step-by-step of how I do it. I've done the below many times, and working with specific part of their request is actually one of my favorite parts of automation. Talk about serendipity. Anyway, here's how I'd build it, step-by-step bullet points. So basically, left to right flow with arrows. A little bit about me bullet points. You guys kind of seeing the point here? We are templating out the copy in such a way that AI is only ever responsible for a very small but important chunk of the finished product. The reason why is so that human beings, when they read it, don't just go, oh, that's AI generated gibberish. They go, gibberish. They go, I'm just speaking gibberish now. They go wow, this is really crisp and clean, and obviously it's a real human being. And then because we're just paraphrasing little sections here or there, we get all the benefits of templating stuff out and being pretty procedural about things. And we also get to take all the benefits of AI flexibility as well. Stuff like specific part of their request, step-by-step bullet points, right? At the end, I say, to be upfront, my goal is to work with you on a long-term retainer, since I find it aligns incentives and lets me help clients better. So I treat everything we do together as foundational, help you build systems that drive revenue and maximize cost savings. I am really confident I can blow this out of the park for you. So if it sounds like something you're into, just respond to my proposal on Upwork and we'll take it from there. Thank you for your time. So this is all copy that I've used many times in order to make the $500,000 on Upwork. This is how I communicate with clients. I always front load and say, my goal is to get you on some sort of recurring relationship. Everything I'm doing is in effort from that. I'm 100% transparent at the very beginning of my relationship. I find that if you just front load with that, you tend to perform a lot better. And people are just, they just tend to like you more because they're like, the guy said he was going to do something, then he did it. They did extra on top of that. And then he pitched me the thing that he told me he was going to pitch me, right? They kind of know what to expect. So this is the template I'm going to use. Why don't we move over to our second node here, or our second workflow, which is the generate Google Doc proposal. So if you think about it, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to generate a bunch of variables. So title of system, brief explanation of system, right? Specific part of their request, step-by-step bullet points. We're basically going to have to go and we're going to have to generate all these little tiny bits here or there, and then we're going to have to fit them in. So there are a couple things that we're going to want to do. The first is we're going to want to copy the Google Doc, first and foremost, because we're not going to want to do any edits on the main template. We're going to obviously want to copy the template, then do all the edits on there. The second thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to find some sort of find and replace. Unfortunately, in N8N, as opposed to a lot of other tools, there's no simple way just to slap a bunch of text inside of a Google Doc, as I'm sure some of you guys are aware. It's just pretty annoying to do. You could technically do a workaround with the Google Drive module, but this sort of find and replace template feature, this just eliminates a large portion of the issue. It also allows you to do cool things like add templated images in here. So like you could totally imagine a picture of you right over a little bit about me, right? Or something. I much prefer this templated approach to basically everything else. But let's start out simple. Let's start out with copying the Google Doc, okay? And then we're going to generate a bunch of AI stuff, and then we're going to squeeze it in that Google Doc. So first thing we're going to want to do is I'm just going to open up Docs. What I'm going to want is I lied. The very first thing we're going to want to do is actually we have to copy it, right? So I'm going to go Drive and then Copy File. Now, if you guys don't have a Google Drive credential, it's kind of annoying to set up, to be honest. You have to go to your Google Cloud Console, which is, I believe it's console.cloud.google.com. Let me see if I have it. Let's go here, console.cloud.google.com, right over there. You'll have to create an account. After you create an account, you'll get a page that looks something like this. Then you have to go down to APIs and Services. Scroll super far, find the Google Drive API. It's right over here. Then you're going to want to go to Credentials and then just copy over all of these fields: Client ID and Client Secret. You'll find them on the Credentials page, which I'm not going to show you for security purposes and just because I don't want to have to like recreate my key. It's pretty funny how many times people say stuff like, "Hey Nick, you just exposed everything in the last video, just FYI." And I'm like, "Oh, you're right. I should probably go back and fix that." Anyway, once you're done with that, it'll ask you to sign in. Once you've signed in, you'll have the credentials. Just make sure to click that little sign in with Google button. The resource we're going to be using is file. Operation is going to be copy. If you think about it, we're obviously going to have this template. So make sure to save that over to your account. After you've done so, you should have it accessible inside of your Google Drive. So I'm going to go Google Doc. Proposal template, right? Upwork proposal template. This one right here. Okay, great. Now we have file name. Actually, we're going to need to generate a file name now that I'm thinking about it. So this actually isn't going to work, but it's going to work. It's just not going to be ideal. I'm just going to test this now. And then we're going to get as output a Google Drive ID, which is great. The next thing I'm going to want to do, just because I know how Google Drive works, is we're going to want to share this. So if you've ever had a situation where you create a file or create a resource or copy something, but then you can't share it with anybody, nobody can see it. And then you can solve that just by going Google Drive and then share file. Again, you're going to have to connect to your Google Drive. And then what you want is you want to select the specific file ID that you just copied. So don't actually use from list, use by ID, then copy over this. So it's dynamic, right? It's the ID of the file we just copied over a second ago. In terms of permissions, I always just go reader, then go anyone. So that way anyone can read, but not everyone can write. Okay, great. So I'm just going to test this. We now have this document, which should now be publicly accessible. Just to double check, I'm actually going to go back here. And the unfortunate thing is N8N doesn't give you a URL that you can access easy. What you have to do is you have to grab the ID and you have to paste the ID in between the /d/ then the /edit. And this is now our new document, okay? And you know that because it's called example in the top left-hand corner, as opposed to, Google Docs Upwork proposal template. So it looks like everything on the copying front was good. If I just, if I grab this and I go into an incognito tab, I can still see this, right? Okay, perfect. So now I've just verified that the sharing settings are fine. You can even see that there are other people on this. That means that our client's going to be able to see. Fantastic. The next thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go and, if you think about it, we just added in example as the title. That's not really good enough. I actually want to have the whole, I want the whole package to be clean. I want the title of the Google Doc to say the specific system or a paraphrase version of the system. I want everything to be, above board. So the way that we're going to do that is we actually have to go and we have to generate using artificial intelligence a bunch of stuff. So to make your lives easier, just head back to the previous node, the previous workflow, I should say, and copy the LLM node, the OpenAI message model, and just paste it in over here. Because we've already done a lot of the hard work in building the foundation. So all we're going to have to do is edit a few of these sections. So here, you are a helpful, intelligent proposal writer. And as you can see, we're going to provide the exact same context as before. So before, we had, I'm an automation specialist doing X, Y, and Z. Then we had high-performing proposals typically templated as follows. Then output your results in JSON using this format along with some rules, right? We're actually going to follow a very similar structure. Just again, so I don't have to go and write all this from scratch. And prompt engineering is, as I mentioned, one of the highest ROI parts of the business. So it's, if it takes a lot of time, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But just to avoid that from happening, I'm going to copy in my previous one, and then I'll just walk through what it looks like. Okay, beautiful. So, oh, I think I copied it from the wrong one. Yeah, I did. Nope, that's not the one. Must be this one here. Okay, perfect. So I'm pasting that in. You'll see it's a little longer. What I'm saying is, hey, I'm an automation specialist applying to jobs on freelance platforms. Your task is to take as input an Upwork job description and return as output JavaScript object notation for a customized proposal, which I'll upload to Google Docs. Do you guys see how much context I'm providing it? I'm actually giving it a bunch of information on exactly what I want to do, just in case there's something I hadn't thought about that it'll be able to format in the response. AI, as of the time of this video, has extraordinarily broad understanding of basically everything. It might not have the deepest understanding if we're calling GPT-4o, but it's so broad that it can typically find a lot of weird kind of one-off edge cases for you. So I do stuff like this. I tell it exactly what it is that I want it to do. Anyway, then it says high-performing proposals are typically templated as follows. And notice how I'm giving it everything, right? I'm saying in Markdown, title of system, Markdown, brief explanation of system. Hi, as mentioned, I'm so confident that I'm the right fit for this that I went ahead and created a proposal for you, including a step-by-step of how I do it. I've done the below many times and working with a specific part of their request that's a variable we'll fill in. It's actually one of my favorite things to do, talk about serendipity. Anyway, here's how we'll build all of this stuff. So basically, left to right flow with arrows. A little bit about me bullet points to be up front, blah, 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 and then I have the rest of my copy here. The thing that'll be relevant for you is output your results in JavaScript object notation using this format. Basically, what we've done is we've gone through and we've gotten all of these headings and we just replace them with variables, right? So title of system, I should actually just make this one for one. If I'm going to use that, it's just going to be a lot easier to access. So title of system, right? Check. Brief explanation of system, that's right over here. Check. Specific part of their request, that's right over here. Check. Paraphrase system. I don't know if I had paraphrase system. I feel like I might have removed it. Anyway, let's just get rid of that. Step-by-step bullet points. Check. Left to right flow with arrows. Check. A little bit about me bullet points. Check. And then you'll notice that after I provide it the example of the JSON format that I want, I also give it some rules. Hey, I want you to write in a casual Spartan tone of voice. Hey, don't use emojis or flowery language. Hey, if there's a name included somewhere in the Upwork job description, this is kind of cool. Add it for personalization purposes. So instead of it being like, hey, it's like, hey, Peter, right? If Peter is a small little throwaway line at the very bottom of like a 3,000 word request for a proposal, Peter is going to feel like you really understood him, right? Return step-by-step bullet points and about me bullet points as strings. Delimit each bullet point with a \n and make sure it includes a hyphen. In about me bullet points, prefer not to mention social proof that includes money and numbers. For left to right flow with arrows, write a simplified left to right flow delimited by these. Delimited just means kind of broken up by. For instance, and then I give it an example. Then use first person language like I'd streamline, I do, blah, blah, blah. And then we have some facts about me for the personalization down here. And I'm, again, going to provide this for you. Now that I'm thinking about it, like there's no need for us to repeat this over and over and over again. We could just draw from like one data source. But just to keep this as modular as possible, I'm going to have all of these about me stored separately. This should now be about me. Wonderful. Now we go over here. We should obviously get JSON/about, okay, .about me, perfect. And then down here at the bottom, the job description is execute workflow trigger. That's the very first node. Then .item.json.query. So if we want to test this again, right, what we need to do is we need to go and we need to paste in the whole Upwork job description. Now I've already done that in a previous node, right? So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to grab this whole query. Actually, I can just grab this whole JSON. I'm going to go over here and then just paste that in. Looks good to me, aside from some weird formatting. I don't really like that. Whatever. I'll just leave it as is. I'm going to save this. If I go to JSON, it should be formatted right for me. Okay, yeah, it is. Perfect. We're now going to test this because I want to make sure that everything here works. Awesome. Now this OpenAI node is going to write, right? So it's looking like it's not finding this for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to drag this in manually because I know that that node is there. It's saying undefined. This might just be one of those N8N one-off errors. So we'll leave it at that. I'll click test and then we'll see if we actually are getting it. This is now going to return a bunch of JSON, basically JavaScript object notation. Cool. Looks like it did. Automated outreach system. Cool. Cool. Very neat. I'm curious what was fed in here, though, with this execute workflow trigger supposedly not working. So just for posterity, I'm going to repeat this and just make sure that that is not going to result in some weird error that I'm not expecting later on. So this is looking good. So let me rerun that one more time. I always like, just double checking. It might take me, yeah, okay. So there was something wrong with the previous node. For whatever reason, it wasn't finding the variable that I was looking for. But now we're generating the specific variables that we want, like title of system, specific part of the request, blah, blah, blah. Cool. So now if you think about it, what happens next is we generated title, right? So what we can do is actually we can just drag that in file name. So now the file name of the copy that we're creating is going to be Gmail to Google Drive receipt and invoice automation. Fantastic. Okay, great. And then we're sharing the file. Let's actually just test this now, all the way up to the SharePoint, just from start to finish. And let's see if, in isolation, these subflows work. Anytime you're developing an AI agent, just go in isolation and test the subflow from start to finish using a query key or a query object. If you are using maybe some other naming convention, then you can use that. But the point is just try and mimic exactly the input that it's going to be receiving from the AI agent. And then make sure that that works and then connect it to the AI agent. Okay, great. So we have an output here from the share file. Looks like we now have shared said file. I'm just going to quadruple check this. I'm going to go over to this and paste it in. Perfect. Looks like we got everything that we need. We can now actually go through and do the customizing of this thing. So now that it's shared, we can actually go Google Docs. What we want is we want update a document. Okay. The doc ID or URL we're going to get from the Google Drive because that's the one that we just copied. And then what we're going to want is the object is going to be text. The action is going to be find and replace. And now what we have to do is we basically have to go through and map those curly brace variables that I was using as placeholders and replace them with the output from the OpenAI node. So if we just go back here, what are those curly brace variables? Title of system, brief explanation of system, right? Specific part of the request. I'm going to build this alongside with you. So I'm just going to paste that in. And then for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to add a bunch of actions. I don't know how many there are, but I just want to do this quickly. So this is typically what you do when you want to do things quickly. You just bulk add because your mouse doesn't have to move around. You don't have to look a lot. Awesome. So now we have a bunch of find and replace text. And now I'm just going to go and grab all of these. Let's paste that in over, right over there. Then I'm going to do specific part of their request right over there. Just alt-tabbing back and forth to save myself a little bit of time. Step-by-step bullet points. Pasting that in left to right with arrows, pasting that in about me bullet points, pasting that in. And was there anything else? No, I think that's it. So we can actually get rid of the rest of these. Okay, and then if you think about it, we also have to add the new text, right? So the new text for title of system is just going to be this variable that we already created called title of system. New text for brief explanation of system is just going to be there. The new text for specific parts of the request is going to be there. Step-by-step bullet points there. Left to right flow with arrows there. And about me bullet points there. Okay, so now if we just kind of take a step back and think through it logically, we've mapped all of the variables that we just generated using AI. We've pumped them all into this Google Docs find and replace feature, and we have our document right over here. So what should happen when we run this? Well, it should go through and it should update it with all of this. So I'm just going to click test step and we're going to see. We're going to check it out for ourselves, basically. And voila, we've now replaced the title. We replaced the subheading. We replaced this section down here. We've added in a bunch of personalized info. And now we have a little bit about me as well, which is pretty cool. Cool. So we verified that this works. The last thing that we have to do is we just need to send this back to the AI agent, right? So how are we going to send this back to the AI agent? Well, it's going to be the same thing that we did in the previous workflow, which is basically where we use an edit fields variable or set variable field or whatever you want to call it to have a response. It's just this time I'm going to call it a URL. I'm actually going to map a Google Docs URL so that, the AI agent gets the URL sort of in its hand, and then it can use that to format out the rest of the proposal or application. So the way you do that is you just go edit fields. And then what I'm going to do is I'll have manual mapping. The name here is just going to be the URL of proposal. Okay. I'm then going to grab this document ID. But if you think about it, this isn't enough, right? It's just a document ID. So what we actually have to do is we have to map it the exact same as this. So I'm going to grab this URL here, which is just a Google Docs URL. This is how they work. I'm going to paste it in. Then what I want to do is I want to replace this old ID here with this mapped ID here. And now, as we see, we have docs.google.com/document/d/ID/edit. Well, for sanity, why don't we go and we test this? Just make sure we're looking at the same doc. Okay, we are looking at the same doc. Fantastic. So now that we have that URL of proposal string, I can test this. And now we're seeing that we're outputting this, which means that when we do our, you can just click a node and then press P to unpin, by the way. When we do our AI agent connection in a second, we're going to be drawing from URL of proposal. Awesome. Okay, so that was the first one. Let's now go and add another tool. We'll call it this N8N workflow tool. I'm going to scroll down and select generate Google Doc proposal, and the field I want is URL of proposal. I'm going to call this generate Google Doc proposal. I'm going to use their naming convention here to say call this tool to generate a Google Doc proposal for an Upwork job. The input should be a string of an Upwork job post. And the output will be a URL, let's say a proposal URL that you can use to fill in templates. Paste that in there. Wonderful. Now that we've verified that that second flow works in isolation, let's actually go and let's make sure it works in reality. So what I'm going to do now is I'll go back to my chat window here. You see how it generated me all of this, right? Well, I'm actually just going to use its intelligence and I'll say, can you generate me a Google Doc now? And now what it's going to do is it's going to pull from the window buffer. It's going to grab the old memory, and then it's going to make a decision on what to do next because it's doing a couple of API calls under the hood. Once it's decided, it's going to look and see if there is any N8N workflow tool available that has a title kind of like, Google Doc proposal and stuff. So ideally, that's what it's doing right now. Cool. So it's calling the N8N workflow tool. Now, the N8N workflow tool is going through everything that we talked about before. So it's actually generating the response. It looks like we returned this response node, and it looks like it's generated the Google Doc description now. Cool. And let me just double check that this makes sense. And it does make sense. Perfect. We have the whole proposal. It looks very custom and very high quality. It looks like, we spent a lot of time and energy generating this. Cool. But that's not enough. Let's go one step further now and let's generate a super high quality or perceived high quality Mermaid doc or Mermaid flowchart, essentially, so that the people on the other end think that not only did we write all this stuff ourselves, we actually went through and we used some sort of workflow tool to put it all together. This is how you can send at very high volumes without having to spend a lot of time per individual one that you are sending. So let me just rename this now that we're done with it. I'll say generate Google Doc proposal. And now the last thing we need to do is obviously our Mermaid code. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar, Mermaid is a mythical creature. No, Mermaid is a diagramming and charting tool. It's JavaScript based. Basically, it allows you to generate pretty good looking things. And it's really stupid that they do not have an example of a Mermaid flowchart on their website. But essentially, you can generate stuff like this really easily. And, they have like their little programming convention, and you just generate something in Mermaid code, and then you just paste it in a visualizer, and it's just standard. It's all parsed, right? So if you've ever used a workflow tool like Whimsical before, it's basically the same thing as Whimsical, right? You press S, you press a button, and then voila, you now have another thing. You can do other stuff as well. You can make mind maps. There are a variety of things you can do. But the really cool thing is Mermaid is just sort of like universally understood now by a lot of these diagramming tools. So you could take it and you can paste it into any one of these tools. And they just have it like, take the code and use it to like generate a very sexy looking workflow chart. Now I should note that you could totally extend this further and you could just have it generate a workflow chart for you automatically without actually having to go through all this rigmarole. It just requires a fair amount of server setup because what you have to do is you have to render the generated Mermaid code on a website. which you might do through some internal webhook, and then you have to take a screenshot of that website. And this is just way too much work. I'm focusing on the 80-20 here. If we can eliminate 90% of the work in an application and improve the perceived quality 3x, then obviously we're going to do that. But just know that you could take this, arbitrarily far if you want. So yeah, let's actually go through and let's do the generation. What does it look like? Well, it's pretty simple actually. You just talk to an LLM and you say, hey, can you generate me some Mermaid code? So to prove it, I'm going to create an OpenAI. Let's actually just copy it from the previous one. That'll always be easier. Always copy from a previous flow if possible, because it'll save you a lot of time. Mermaid.js code writer. Then over here, I'm going to leave the context the same. Your task is to take as input an Upwork job description, return as output JSON that includes Mermaid JS code. Okay. So just for the purpose of this demonstration, generate mermaid.js code for the following flow. And I'm going to say, receive email from Facebook, lead ads. I'll say 2, add to CRM, and 3, send customized SMS. Okay. So that is now what our whole prompt is. And I'm just going to leave it at that just to show you guys what it looks like. I'm then going to test step. We're saying output content is JSON, but essentially what we get is here we get this graph TD, A, receive email from Facebook lead ads, B, add to CRM, B to C, send customized SMS. This is basically just like a relationship diagram in their coding language. And this is all that OpenAI is going to be generating for us. Then we're just going to take it and paste it in somewhere. So that's pretty cool. Let me show you guys the actual prompt that I was using in order to make this done. Make this happen. If I copy this puppy, I go back to here and then I paste it in. You could see that what I said was your task is to take as input an Upwork job description and return as output a Mermaid diagram that I can visualize using a subsequent Mermaid.js tool. Output your results in plain text. So we're not using JSON this time, but plain text using a Mermaid code formatting. Don't output anything but the Mermaid diagram code. Here's an example of what your output should look like. Rules. You only output flowcharts, nothing else. No sequence diagrams, no Gantt charts, only flowcharts. That's because Mermaid has a variety of different ways that they could show data. They could do sequence flowcharts, sequence diagrams, Gantt charts, and stuff like that. We just want flowcharts, which I believe is just this graph. Do not output any accessory formatting information like backtick Mermaid. Sometimes it does this and I don't like it. And your first character should be G. I'm just really trying to constrain it so that it only outputs this graph TD thing. Okay, great. So now that that's done, I mean, to be honest, that's basically it, right? We just need to test this on some actual code. So I'm going to now write my own query the same way that I did before using this data. So I'm going to copy this over. I'm going to paste this in now, save it. We've pinned this. And now I'm just going to feed this in. Voila, we have the user prompt right here. And we're going to untick output content as JSON. We're now going to test the step. We're going to see if we get workable or usable Mermaid code. Now, this is a very long job description. In hindsight, wish I would have gotten a slightly shorter one just because of how much longer it's making the video take. But c'est la vie. I guess the idea is I could show you guys that it works on basically anything. Okay, great. And so now we have all this code, right? Fantastic. Very cool. I should note that I think we have a bunch of like new lines in here, which kind of sucks. We need to replace these new lines. Otherwise, I don't know if it'll work if I paste it in. Yeah, basically, this is outputting with a bunch of new lines, but when you return it back to the AI agent, those new lines will automatically be filled in. So I think in this case, it's clear that it did generate me some Mermaid code. I'm just going to go and connect this now to OpenAI, to the first agent, sorry. Last thing I need to do in order to make that happen is just edit fields. I'm then going to say Mermaid code. I'm going to grab this content, paste it in. Let's just test that step. That is now the output. Wonderful. I'm going to unpin this node, and I'm going to go back to our agent, and let's add one final tool. And let me just copy this because we can template out most again. Drag that puppy in there. I got to stop saying that puppy, man. Generate Mermaid diagram. And then over here, we'll say, call this tool to generate a mermaid.js. Generate mermaid.js diagram code. The input will be an Upwork job description. The output will be the Mermaid diagram code. What we want is we want the field to be called Mermaid code. Let me just double check that because I'm feeling a little crazy right now. Yeah, it's Mermaid code. Beautiful. Let's leave it at that. And then I will go back and I'll say, can you generate me some mermaid.js code? And now it will access the window buffer memory, just like it did before. So first it'll add to it. Then it'll go open AI chat model. It's going to choose what to do, which in our case is now generate the mermaid code. Looks like there was an issue. Interesting. So it's going to get back to us with said issue. It did not return an item with the property mermaid code. Interesting. So did I unfortunately name this wrong or something? Mermaid code is here. Yeah, so it looks like there was some issue. Oh, sorry, I was calling the wrong one. My bad. We got to go generate mermaid code. Well, that was an unfortunately easy bug. Try again. So this AI agent is now trying to do it on its own. I don't want the AI agent to try doing this on its own because if you think about it, in the chat thread, it has like 500 examples of different things. And if you're talking with the agent sort of in one session, you're getting it to generate you some code or something for another job, we don't want it to get confused. We want it to be very clear and blunt. Hey, all you're doing is you're generating mermaid code for the input that I gave you. And that's really the value in tools, just constraining, the space of all possible responses. Okay, great. So it looks like we did generate some code and it's right over here. So that's nice. If I just now copy, you can see that it's even telling us we can use this in the Mermaid live editor, but that's okay. I'm just going to use this in Whimsical and voila. We now have a big workflow diagram where basically I'm showing people what I'm doing. So we're going to have a manual mode with a Google Sheets interface with manual data entry and a button to trigger automation. Then I have an automated VAT mode, automated email to bookkeeper and accountant, so on and so on and so forth, where I'm basically walking through the scope of the project. So, it'd be pretty cool to like take this, generate an image of it, and then, I don't know, can I just put the image in right over here? Actually, I should probably put it right over here instead. You receive something like this and you think, wow, that guy really spent his time putting that puppy together, right? There I go again. Awesome. So that is more or less what that looks like. But I'm not going to stop there because I don't just want this to be an assistant, really. I mean, like just for time purposes. What I actually want to do is I wanted to do all three. So I basically want it like just by default, when you paste in an Upwork job application, it just goes and it generates all three. And I'm just doing that for now. Like in the future, as you can imagine, let's say you start adding a bunch of other tools. So we have an Upwork HTTP request tool that like calls the Upwork backend, retrieves you a list of jobs, right? That's really cool. And you can totally do that. Once you have that, well, now you have a list of all these Upwork jobs. You can have another one that maybe gets a specific job. Well, great. Now you have something that can independently list jobs, grab a specific job. Maybe you have a way to filter the jobs now. So now you have something that gets all jobs, filters jobs, gets the specific subset of jobs that you request, pulls the descriptions of those, automatically feeds it into this, and then, sort of does a lot of the work for you that way. Yeah, you can go arbitrarily deep with this. At our specific purposes, we've added these three, and just functionally speaking, most people are probably going to want to do all of them when they paste in a description. So they're going to generate Mermaid, generate Google Doc proposal, generate application copy. So I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to tell it to. So I will say, when you receive an Upwork job description, you must generate a Mermaid diagram, a Google Doc, and an Upwork application. You must then replace the $$ with the Google Doc proposal link. Cool. So now we've changed the code. We've changed the prompt, which I guess you can conceptualize as code. I'm now going to refresh this from start, and I'm just going to delete the input. So now we can just have a fresh conversation with it. I'm going to head over to our super crazy long prompt. I'm going to paste it all in. Okay. And now it should go through, see the chat model with the prompt on it that says, hey, I'm going to want you to do all three of these things. It's going to make the determination to access the specific tool set that we asked it to. It's going to be reading through that system prompt and it's going to be going, damn, this guy wants me to do all three of these things. What a lazy piece of crap. Okay, it's now generating all three, already finished the application copy, Mermaid.js code's done. And the Google Doc proposal, understandably, since it's doing more, is going to take an additional second. But boy, is it really gratifying when all these things turn green, huh? When these are done, they feed the output back in the chat model, and then it comes and it basically phrases it in the way that we want. So then I go to the chat, We see we have everything that we need here. So the mermaid.js code is first, so we can just copy that into whatever tool we want. And, it's going to generate different things every time, right? Then after that, we have Google Doc proposal, which we can click over here to view. And again, it's going to generate slightly different things every time. And then we have the Upwork application copy. So I should note, it's looking like it's attempting to embed this, and I don't know on Upwork, they don't allow you to do that. So we should probably add a line in here that just says output the link in plain text. Google Doc proposal link in plain text. Okay, and that should make it output it in plain text as opposed to like this view Google Doc thing, which you can't actually like insert in Upwork. Anyway, here it is. You just copy that, paste that into the job when you're ready to submit it. Just right over here. Yeah, you see how it says view Google Doc? I wonder if you just paste it in plain text. No, you can't paste it in plain text. So you're going to have to grab that specific link in this case, and then grab the rest of this, and then paste it in here, and then paste it in right over here. But after you make the appropriate edits, you will have essentially a link that looks like this, that the person will then be able to open. It's nice. That looks pretty clean and easy. And then obviously we have the workflow diagram that you can embed inside or make whatever changes you want to this as well. So I've made a couple of videos on Upwork in the past. Typically what ends up happening is I make a video and then everybody starts doing the thing that I just showed them how to do. And then the approach loses a little bit of viability because obviously we're, only a certain number of people that watch videos like mine. And then those people tend to dominate the market share and take, 80, 90% of all available jobs and that sort of stuff. I also think that Upwork is is starting to get a lot more up to date with the approaches, and they're trying to make sure that, obviously you're not automating every aspect of the job application process. Although I do maintain that your ability to automate the job application process, if you are a systems person or an automator, is basically example A for why the person should hire you in the first place. But anyway, because of this, I don't recommend that you use the exact templates that I'm providing here. Like I recommend that you go through and you actually switch it up a little bit. Change the wording, right? Change the specific tactics. Tactics and strategy will change. Tactics and strategy will lose effectiveness, but the kind of like deeper understanding, tactics will lose effectiveness, but strategy and the deeper understanding of exactly what I'm doing here and what the idea behind it is, will remain with you forever. So try and, understand the latter, not necessarily the former. So switch up, the exact approach a little bit. You can add some other assets in there, drag and drop a picture of yourself waving, or you riding a kangaroo. I don't know if you could ride kangaroos. Sorry, Aussies that watch me. And, once you have that your own flavor to it, then you can start applying and stuff like that en masse. Hopefully you guys appreciated the video. I had a lot of fun putting that system together as per usual. If you guys want to check out that template, then please do go down. There'll be a link in the description. It's the first time that I'm going to be charging for any one of these templates, but I want you to know that you can get them all in my communities, both Maker School and Make Money with Make, at any time. And all several hundred of them are just bundled within the price of that offering, as well as a bunch of other cool stuff like answer your questions once a week and Make Money with Make, once a month marathon session in Maker School. On a live call, I'll do things like daily Q&A where I answer questions that people are having or struggles that they're currently undergoing with N8N, Make.com, and other no-code tools. And ultimately just a lot of business advice, motivation, and the ability to connect with like-minded and successful entrepreneurs. Have a lovely rest of the day. Please subscribe, like, do all that fun YouTube stuff that bumps me up to the top of the algo. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.